A change to how you can declare and scope variables in JavaScript introduced in ES6 and beyond. These features give us more control of the scope of our variables and help us produce less bugs. For starters, at the beginning of each section in this course, we'll talk about why. Why was a feature added to the JavaScript language? In this case, block scoping. Big word alert. Big word alerts come along when we use a term that sounds complicated, but if we dive in, really isn't that complicated. So, big word alert. Block scoping. Variable scope is defined lexically by a block. In JavaScript's case, curly braces. You may remember that when we talk about the lexical position of something, or lexically, we're talking about how it's written in the code. So variable scope being defined lexically means the scope of the variable is influenced by where it sits in the code. And when we're talking about blocks, in JavaScript, that means the code inside curly braces. Note that's not referring to the curly braces we use when creating an object literal. We're talking about the kind of curly braces we use, for example, for an if statement to wrap a collection of JavaScript statements, lines of code. Now, why was block scoping added to the JavaScript language? To avoid bugs and give greater control over the scope of variable. We saw in JavaScript Understanding the Weird Parts that a variable declared with the var keyword is hoisted, and the way it worked could have some interesting implications and unexpected consequences. Now, understanding that is still important. There's lots of JavaScript code out there in the world, and a lot of it still uses the var keyword, which creates variables that are not block scoped. However, now, especially if you're writing new code, we can scope our variables to the block. And the features added to do this also provide a few other things to help us avoid bugs. So now let's dive under the hood of a JavaScript engine to understand how this feature works and the results in our code.